If you're sitting in a room right now, like maybe your office or a coffee shop or just your living room, I want you to just look around for a second.
Let's take it all in.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the sweeping lines of the walls, the glass in the windows, the way the floor meets the baseboards. Usually when we look at a built space, we really only think about the architecture.
Right, we see the intention of the designer. We don't see the underlying mathematics of how that physical reality was actually negotiated.
Exactly. We experience the space as this one unified, finished product. But then you step into the world of major multi-million-dollar construction contracts, and suddenly that beautiful unified room just shatters.
Oh, completely. It shatters into thousands of these hyper-specific, fiercely negotiated microscopic pieces.
And for this deep dive, we are looking at something that literally dictates the shape of the modern world.
Yeah.
We're looking at the FIDIC Red Book construction contract.
A massively important document.
It really is. Specifically, we've got a stack of sources covering the unit rate schedules and pricing preambles for building and architectural works.
And just to give that some context for everyone, FIDA is basically the global gold standard rule book for massive international construction projects.
Right.
When a government or a massive corporation wants to build, say, a billion-dollar hospital or a sprawling airport terminal, they don't just shake hands.
I mean, I would hope not.
Yeah, they use a contract like this to dictate exactly who pays for what, literally down to the last drop of paint.
And that is exactly our mission for you today. We are taking these incredibly dense, legally binding spreadsheets and translating them into the physical reality of the built environment around you.
Because it really changes how you see things.
It totally does.
Okay.
I promise you, by the end of this deep dive, you will never look at a painted wall or a tiled floor or even just a simple door the same way again.
You really won't.
Every single element you can see right now has a hyper-specific code, a fully loaded price tag, and it hides a massive amount of invisible labor. So, okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin to understand how you price an entire skyscraper piece by piece?
Well, we have to start with the fundamental DNA of the project.
The DNA.
Yeah, in these massive EPC contracts, which stands for engineering, procurement, and construction, meaning the contractor is handling everything. From the blueprints, to buying the steel, to pouring the concrete.
Wow, so everything.
Everything. And that DNA is called the work breakdown structure, or the WBS. Without it, a billion-dollar project would honestly just collapse into financial chaos.
But because looking at these sources, this isn't just some basic shopping list. It's a rigid 7-level WBS system.
It is incredibly rigid.
It's kind of like a Russian nesting doll of financial liability. And you open the building doll, and inside is the wall doll, and inside that is the mortar doll.
Right.
And every single doll has a fixed price tag printed right on its back.
That's actually a highly accurate way to visualize it. The contract demands a unique alphanumeric code for every single object or task.
So how does the numbering work?
You start really broad. Level 0 is the facility type. Level 1 is the physical area. Level 2 is the specific unit of the building. But the real friction-like, the granular detail we're looking at today starts at level 3.
Right, level 3 dictates the discipline. So for all the things we're talking about today, like walls, floors, doors, the code is BA.
Yes, which stands for Building and Architectural Works.
Right. And if you were looking at, say, the giant steel girders holding the place up, it would be ST for structural steel, or pipework is PA.
Exactly. Then you crack open the next nesting doll, level 4, which dictates the material category.
Okay.
So in our BA world, a lot of things fall under a code like B01, meaning any material. But if we were looking at piping, level 4 is where you declare whether you're paying for cheap carbon steel or, incredibly expensive duplex stainless steel.
Oh, that makes sense. And then level 5 is where the physical action actually happens. This is the specific activity.
Yep, the actual building part.
So like WBS 627 is blockwork and masonry, 628 is doors and windows, 629 is partitions.
And levels 6 and 7 get incredibly specific. They define the exact thickness, the exact brand, the exact dimensions of that material.
But I have to stop and just act as the skeptic here for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If I'm a client and I'm paying a massive construction firm to build a hospital, why do I need a 7-digit alphanumeric code just to tell them to build a simple block wall?
It seems like overkill, right?
It really does. Like, why can't the contract just say, build a brick wall along this hallway and here's $20,000?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, in a massive EPC contract, ambiguity is the absolute enemy of the client.
How so?
because these projects operate on razor-thin profit margins despite the huge overall price tags. If you just say build a wall, a contractor looking to save money might use lightweight hollow blocks.
When you desperately needed solid soundproof ones.
Exactly. Or they might leave the mortar joints rough and jagged when you needed them perfectly smooth for hygiene reasons in a hospital.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be a disaster.
So the WBS code, which is permanently chained to its specific pricing preamble, ensures everyone knows exactly what reality is being purchased, literally down to the millimeter.
So it's basically the ultimate anti-loophole device.
That's exactly what it is.
Which brings us to what I think is the most fascinating part of these sources, how that reality is actually measured and paid for.
Yes, the method of measurement.
Because looking at the pricing preambles, which are the strict rules that govern the spreadsheet, there is an entire section dedicated to this. And the defining rule of this whole ecosystem is something called net measurement.
Yes, the net as fixed in position rule. I mean, this is arguably the harshest, most unforgiving reality of construction pricing.
Okay, let me just make sure I am fully grasping the unfairness of this.
It is pretty brutal.
The preambles state that all items of work are measured net as fixed in position, and absolutely no allowance is made in the quantities for waste.
None at all.
So let's say an architect designs this bizarre, jagged, triangular lobby, and the worker who is cutting rectangular, ultra-expensive marble floor tiles has to chop off 40% of every tile just to make them fit those weird angles.
Right, a huge amount of waste.
And the contractor just throws all those expensive offcuts into the dumpster. Are you telling me they only get paid for the exact square meterage of the marble that actually stays glued to the floor?
That is precisely what it means. You only get paid for the finished, visible product.
That is insane.
If the architect designs a triangular room, the contractor gets paid for the area of the triangle and nothing more.
But wait, how does anyone make a profit under this system? Like, if a worker is hauling a cinder block up 3 flights of stairs and they accidentally drop it, does the contractor just eat that cost?
Yes, entirely.
Like out of their own pocket?
Yep. The contractor must mathematically predict their own clumsiness, their own offcuts, their own waste, and bake it into that single net rate before the first shovel even hits the dirt.
Wow.
It's a fundamental concept called absorbed risk. The client basically shifts the financial liability of imperfection entirely onto the builder.
That is intense. And looking at the list of what is bundled into that rate, it's not just the broken materials. The preamble demands what I can only really describe as an all-inclusive illusion.
That's a good term for it.
Because when I look at the spreadsheet and see a rate of, say, 150 euros per square meter for a masonry wall, I might think, okay, that covers the blocks and the cement.
And you would be very wrong.
Right. The preamble states that rate must legally include all direct labor, all indirect labor, the supply of all consumables down to the diamond grinding discs, and the diesel fuel for the generators.
It's staggering when you really unpack it. That single per square meter rate includes the scaffolding required to reach the top of the wall.
Oh, of course, the scaffolding.
It includes the temporary plastic sheeting to protect the floor. It includes the brooms and the dumpsters for the cleanup.
It even explicitly mentions that for civil and architectural works, the rate includes the removal of the cardboard packing the materials arrived in.
Yes.
And the cost of the crane hoisting it up the building. And fabricating temporary steel brackets just to hold things in place while the mortar dries.
Exactly. The client is basically saying, I do not care about your logistical problems. I am only paying for the exact dimensions of the finished wall.
Which is pretty cold, honestly.
It is, but it forces the contractor to be ruthlessly efficient. Because if they have workers standing around waiting for a late delivery, or if they rent scaffolding for 3 weeks instead of 2, their entire profit margin for that wall just evaporates.
All right, so let's take these strict, unforgiving rules and apply them to the physical act of building the space. We're moving from the abstract rules to WBS 627.
Which is blockwork and masonry.
Right, and WBS 629, which covers internal partitions. And the sheer variety of materials here really proves why you can't just say build a wall.
Oh, yeah, because the risk profile changes entirely depending on the material you use.
Yeah, so the schedule lists natural hollow concrete blocks, but then it lists scoria blend blockwork that specifically demands a 4-hour fire insulation rating.
Right, so you aren't just buying a wall anymore.
Exactly. You are buying a guaranteed 4 hours of structural survival during an inferno.
And notice how the pricing rules adapt to the material itself.
What do you mean?
Well, take high-end masonry, like sandstone or limestone. The schedule strictly differentiates between a wall that is random rubble-faced, meaning irregularly shaped stones fitted together,
Right.
versus regular coursed square rubble.
Oh, I see. And here's a great example of the preamble's microscopic rulemaking. For those stone walls, the volume measured for payment explicitly includes the mortar joints between the stones.
Right.
But it strictly excludes the copings and sills, the nice finishing stones on the top and bottom.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about the labor involved.
It does.
Yeah, the bulk of the wall is heavy, repetitive lifting. But a stone coping on top requires meticulous alignment, weatherproofing, and completely different specialized labor.
So the contract separates the bulk structural risk from the delicate finishing risk.
Exactly.
Now contrast that heavy permanent masonry with WBS 629, the lightweight internal partitions. These are like the walls in your office or your apartment.
Yes, and the schedule mentions highly specific proprietary systems here. Things like 16mm fur-check fire-rated plasterboard or pre-finished gypcrete wall panels.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The preambles state that installing these partitions isn't just about standing a board upright and screwing it in.
Not at all.
The all-inclusive rate has to cover cutting and trimming all the edges, installing the concealed metal tracks in the floor and ceiling, and fitting hidden draft stops inside the ceiling void to prevent airflow.
It's a lot of hidden work.
It is. But the absolute craziest part is what happens when someone needs to put a hole in that wall.
The penetrations. Yeah, this is a massive point of friction on any construction site.
Right. Let's say a plumber needs to run a water pipe through one of these proprietary fire-rated steel partitions.
Okay.
The carpenter who built the wall doesn't get to charge the client extra for dealing with the hole.
Nope.
The preamble specifically says the unit rate for the wall must include, and this is almost verbatim, fabricating and installing the penetration sleeve complete, welding, bolting, and restoring the integrity of the partition.
It really is a lot of extra steps.
It's like performing hidden surgery. You don't just cut a hole. You have to completely heal the wall's structural and fire-rated integrity so it doesn't fail during a blaze.
Right, because if you don't, the whole fire rating is useless.
Exactly. And the cost of that complex surgery is just blindly bundled into the original per square meter price of the wall.
Which is brilliant project management if you think about it.
How so?
Think about the alternative. If every single time an electrician drilled a hole for a wire or a plumber cut a hole for a pipe, the contractor submitted a variation order asking the client for an extra $50 to patch it.
Oh, man. The paperwork.
Paperwork would completely drown a billion-dollar project. By making the unit rate absorb the cost of these inevitable penetrations, the client basically forces the contractor to coordinate their own internal teams.
It's basically the client saying, you guys figure out the holes, just give me a finished wall.
That's exactly it.
Which leads us perfectly to the biggest holes in any building, the ones we walk through.
The doors.
So we've established that cutting a hole in a fire-rated wall is a massive financial liability. How does the contract handle the liability of a door?
Doors under WBS 628 are an excellent case study in how a seemingly simple object is actually a highly complex ecosystem.
Because if you look at the door you walk through today, to you it's probably just a piece of wood on hinges. But the schedule treats it like a machine. It lists acoustic solid core timber doors with an RW45 sound rating.
And let's translate that for a second. RW45 means it has to block 45 decibels of sound, ensuring that, the confidential meeting in the next room actually stays confidential.
Right. Then there are heavy-duty security doors and fireproof doors rated for FRL 6030.
And to translate FRL 6030, that means the door guarantees it will maintain structural adequacy for 60 minutes in a fire.
Wow.
And it will prevent dangerous heat from transferring to the safe side for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You are literally tracing human survival time.
That is so wild. And again, the unit rate isn't just for buying the physical door from a factory. The preamble demands the rate must include the frame, the heavy-duty hinges, the striking plates.
Everything.
It includes the labor for hanging the door perfectly plumb so it doesn't swing open on its own. And my favorite catch-all phrase, making good for services.
It even explicitly requires the rate to absorb the master keying systems.
Yes. Master keying, keying alike, or construction keying.
Mm-hmm.
So the rate isn't just about putting a physical barrier in a hole. It's about integrating that door into the building's entire electronic and physical security grid.
What's fascinating here is how the contract forces the builder to view a door not as a static piece of wood, but as a dynamic moving portal.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
The rate covers the entire messy transition from a pile of disconnected hardware parts sitting on a wooden pallet to a smoothly functioning, perfectly aligned, secure portal.
It's the exact same logic applied to WBS 630, which is roofing.
Sealing the top of the box.
Exactly. A roof isn't just a sheet of metal. The schedule specifies blue scope, Lysite, clip block, color bond sheeting. But beneath that, it specifies CSR Bradford thermofoil, sarking as a vapor barrier to stop condensation.
And thick fiberglass insulation blankets draped over the steel purlins.
And crucially, the safety systems embedded in the roof.
Right, the mesh.
Yes. The rate includes 9mm wire safety mesh that has to be compliant with AS389 standards, which in real-world terms means that wire mesh has to be strong enough to catch a worker who trips and falls.
Yeah, stopping them from plummeting through the insulation down to the concrete floor below.
So keeping a human being alive is baked into the square meter price of the metal roof.
That is exactly right.
And it even covers the aesthetic finishing touches, like custom edge trimmings fabricated from marine-grade 316 stainless steel so they never rust.
Every single layer, the vapor barrier, the life-saving mesh, the stainless steel edge, it's all quantified, priced, and absorbed.
Which brings us to the final phase.
Right.
We've built the heavy masonry walls, we've cut the penetrations, we've hung the complex doors, and we've sealed the roof. Now we have to hide all the scars of construction.
This is where we get to the final aesthetic layers. We are looking at WBS 633 for floor and wall finishes, and WBS 634 for painting works.
And the flooring options alone show how specific the risk gets based on the room's function.
Oh, absolutely. You can't just put standard ceramic tile everywhere in a hospital or an industrial plant.
Exactly. The schedule lists pendymocementitious topping, which requires a specific Dulux color and an R10 slip resistance rating so people don't break their necks when it's wet.
Very important.
It lists Forbo marmoleum, which is a heavy-duty, chemical-resistant vinyl sheeting.
And think about the absorbed risk there. If a worker installs chemical-resistant vinyl incorrectly and a corrosive spill seeps through to the concrete, the liability is catastrophic.
Oh, man. Yeah. It even gets down to the tactile indicator studs for visually impaired accessibility, specifically demanding DTAC classic blacktop studs drilled and fixed perfectly into the concrete.
But you know, the absolute most revealing part of the floor finishes section isn't actually the exotic materials.
Really? Right.
It's a quiet little preamble rule regarding the substrate, the bare concrete floor underneath the finish.
Oh, this rule is incredible. So what does this all mean? The preamble state that the rate for floor finishing must include all additional materials and labor resulting from floor undulation.
And let's translate undulation for a layperson. It just means the concrete slab isn't perfectly flat. It has dips and waves.
Right. So picture this scenario on a job site. The concrete trade finishes their pour, they pack up, and they leave.
Okay.
A week later, the vinyl flooring installer shows up. They put a laser level on the floor and realize it's slightly wavy. Under this contract, the vinyl installer has to fix it.
Yep.
They have to pour hundreds of liters of expensive self-leveling liquid screed to create a perfectly flat surface before they can even glue down their vinyl.
And here's the real kicker. They do not get paid a single extra cent for that leveling compound.
Seriously.
It is entirely at their own cost because floor undulation is considered an absorbed risk.
That raises an incredibly important question about site coordination and how these contracts actually manage human behavior.
It really does, because the finishing trade, like the vinyl layer, absorbs the financial punishment for the structural trade's sloppy concrete work. They are highly incentivized to scream at the concrete guys.
I bet they are.
The vinyl installer will walk onto the site, check the floor, and just refuse to start work, demanding the concrete trade come back and fix it. The contract essentially uses the pricing structure to force subcontractors to police each other's quality control.
It is ruthless. The client doesn't even have to manage the argument. The spreadsheet handles it for them.
Exactly.
And we see similar strict, almost funny rules in WBS 634, the painting works. You've got your standard emulsion and acrylic paints, heavy-duty epoxy for industrial floors, and specialized mineral paints like Chyme Royal and potassium silicate for exterior stone.
But once again, the per square meter rate isn't just for the colored liquid in the bucket.
Right, because the preparation is almost always more expensive and more labor-intensive than the actual act of painting.
Oh, complete.
The preamble explicitly says the rate must include All surface preparation, cleaning off dirt and grease, meticulously applying masking tape, and putting up temporary wooden battens to protect edges.
It's a ton of prep work.
But my absolute favorite rule in this entire document, the one that really proves how abstract this financial ecosystem actually is the rule about measuring painted metalwork.
Oh, this one is great.
The rule literally states, when calculating the painted area of metal sections, the presence of connecting plates, brackets, rivets, bolts, nuts, and similar projections shall be ignored.
It is a purely pragmatic administrative rule.
But just picture the physical reality of that. So picture a painter suspended 50 feet in the air on a scissor lift, spending 3 hours meticulously dabbing thick anti-corrosive paint around 100 individual steel rivets on a massive beam.
It's exhausting, really detailed work.
It really is. But when that painter climbs down and hands in his invoice, the contract legally forces him to hallucinate that the beam was a perfectly flat piece of steel.
That's pretty wild.
He has to pretend the rivets don't even exist when calculating his square meterage.
Well, because the alternative is administrative madness.
How so?
Think about the cost of paying a quantity surveyor to climb up there and mathematically calculate the surface area of 100 individual rivets. It would be astronomical.
Okay, that's true.
So it is much simpler and cheaper for the contract to just offer a slightly higher flat rate for the overall square meterage and force the painter to just absorb the surface area of the rivets into that flat rate. Again, it's about eliminating ambiguity and administrative bloat.
It really is a completely different way of seeing reality. So, to wrap up this deep dive, a building under a FIDIC Red Book contract is far more than just a pile of bricks, glass, and steel arranged by an architect.
It's so much more.
It is a meticulously quantified, microscopic financial ecosystem. Every single square meter of vinyl you walk across, every heavy door you pull open, every painted rivet above your head represents a massive, invisible negotiation of risk, of anticipated waste, and of hidden labor.
Absolutely.
The scaffolding that isn't there anymore, the dropped cinder block in the dumpster, the leveling screed hiding the wavy concrete, it is all baked into the price of the reality you see.
And that reality leaves us with a final, somewhat provocative thought for you to ponder.
Oh, what's that?
Consider how these rigid, unforgiving unit rates might actually impact architectural creativity.
Oh, interesting.
When every complex angular cut, every sweeping curved wall, every unique joint has to be mathematically absorbed into a fixed per square meter rate by a contractor terrified of waste, those unique features represent massive financial risk.
Right.
Does the ruthless pursuit of zero waste and maximum efficiency, driven by these very spreadsheets, inevitably push our modern built environment towards simpler, safer, more predictable, box-like designs?
That is a very sobering thought. The spreadsheets might actually be the things designing the buildings.
It's entirely possible.
So the next time you walk through a doorway or look down at a beautifully flat, tiled floor, remember, you aren't just looking at architecture. You're looking at WBS 628 and WBS 633, perfectly measured. Net is fixed in position with the cost of every single rivet completely ignored.
If you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.